We're going to be essentially crime-free. This is going to be a beacon, and it's going to also serve as an example of what can be done.
That's President Trump talking about a possible extension after a successful night one of his D.C. crime crackdown. National Guard troops taking to the streets, patrolling neighborhoods of the nation's capital. No major incidents, but there were plenty of arrests. 43 folks were sent to the slammer Tuesday night alone. But guess what? Not everybody was a fan. D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser hopped on a Zoom call to trash the crackdown. Watch.
This is a time where community needs to jump in, and we all need to do what we can in our space, in our lane, to protect our city and to protect our autonomy, to protect our home rule, and get to the other side of this guy and make sure we elect a Democratic House so that we have a backstop to this authoritarian push.
Auditorium. That's fun. And the liberal media hacks who live in D.C., well, they know crime is a big problem. And yet, they're too chicken to admit it out loud. Thankfully, Morning Joe is a gossip queen.
I want to read you a text from someone who, I won't say their name, but they're, we'll just say that they're very liberal. And he says, this may sound controversial, but I'm not totally opposed to Trump's National Guard move in D.C. I know he's doing it for politics, but crime remains rampant. I've had too many friends carjacked, shot at. None of us will walk more than 3 blocks after 8 p.m. 13-year-olds are committing many of these crimes.
Joey, is there liberal relief? They obviously must virtue signal that they are disgusted by the authoritarian crackdown. But then in private, they're telling each other, I'm quite happy about this.
Listen, a fellow with this accent can't make fun of the way anyone says anything, if you've heard me read the prompter, but authoritarian, I like that. I've been to one of those once. It was a good old hoedown. Okay, listen, she said this on her X account. She said this to her people. And she said other things to a press conference, which went to everyone. She's trying to talk out both sides of her mouth, and she's not realizing that people hear everything. And so that's her problem. I was very perplexed by how seemingly welcoming she was to President Trump in the press conference and in her public statements. But the truth is, if you're a city mayor, your goal should be to make the people of your city happy, and that's what's going to get you reelected. But when you're the city mayor of a big city with a high profile, your goal is to be in another office. And she's trying to navigate the politics of her office in this very hard to navigate, if partisanship is what you're trying to do, moment. Because, listen, I went to school at Georgetown. Those are the most hypocritical progressive liberals you could ever meet. They won't allow the D.C. Metro to come on top of that hill because they don't want the riffraff to come with it. But they'll yell at me my very first day because I drive a truck. Literally, that's what happened to me. They said, go back to the country where you belong. Wow. And I said, I can't get there quick enough, but I need an education to get there, so get out of my way.
Not very well,
but that's just the type of people that are in D.C. I mean, Georgetown's the worst of it probably, not the community, but just the institution and all of it as far as the hypocrites and the ones that want to live their elitist lifestyle and tell the rest of us in blue-collar America we need to do more to take care of the people they don't want in their neighborhood. That's exactly what President Trump's trying to do. He's trying to give everyone on the pay scale some peace in their homes, and to be against it, it blows my mind.
But Muriel Bowser wasn't. We were talking about this on your show just a couple days ago because, to Joey's point, that everyone was kind of surprised that at the press conference she was backing the president. So when you make an about-face like that, is that because the progressives have gotten to her and threatened her, or is that just bad leadership?
I also think it's a little bit like, if you're President Trump, you have to understand she's got a base too.
Yeah.
And just like, for example, when he goes to Alaska on Friday, Russia has an audience, Zelensky has an audience, NATO has an audience, and he has an audience. So you have to understand, like, what can you ask people to do that are within their realm of politics? I think who she was initially, when we saw her say, okay, well, let's try to work with him on this, is where she really is. She went along with President Trump's decision, at least she didn't push back too much on shuttering the Black Lives Matter thing. She supported a crime bill a couple of years ago that the leftist activists were like very much against. And she also is trying to get the Commanders, Redskins, whatever, but she wants that team back in Washington, D.C. And a lot of progressives don't want that. So I think that she has been willing to do that. But I will also say this, I know this, and I don't think she'd mind me saying it because she said it on TV this morning. When Judge Jeanine first got to D.C., one of the first people she reached out to and established a very good relationship with was Muriel Bowser. And I think that if we can get past this, that she's going to have some politics that she has to deal with, but that she knows this is happening, one, and she's trying to figure out, okay, how do we get to the other side of this in a way that is better for the city? I think just to understand that everyone has politics that they have to deal with and still work with her is probably the best way to do it.
So the people who are pushing back on this, people like Zohran Mamdani, who's obviously the Democrat socialist running for mayor in New York City, they're saying, well, if it can happen in D.C., it can happen anywhere in any big American city. But that's not true, is it?
That's not true. So what could happen, though, in those cities, which we would love to see in those cities, is enforcement of the laws and dismantling these acts and these legislations that have been put in place by these city councils. I was reminded when we were told about these incredible, 2 days of this, how efficacious it's been, how many people have collaborated together to get these arrest warrants out and the like. So we know that there was almost 1,500 participants in, for example, one of those night operations. Border Patrol, FBI, DEA, U.S. Park Police, in addition to D.C. Metro Police. And it reminded me of in Portland when they tried to dismantle the police altogether, and they put they charged them with enforcing safety for residents was like park volunteers, park employees. And the first perp that they tried to either get or protect themselves against obviously brought out a weapon, and they then had to call the police to come and save them. So when people call this tyranny, or when they say, look what can happen in your cities, it's like, exactly. This is what collaboration looks like when the safety of Americans is at stake and when the safety of Americans is the priority. I would love to see Muriel Bowser's call log. That was the first thing that I thought of. Who texted, who called? Yeah. Was it Pelosi? What person in charge said, you need to walk back your comments a little bit to toe the line? But I'm not quite sure how the narrative stops just short of saying we have buy-in and support protecting these minority and low-income communities that purportedly that party was set to protect this entire time. And final point, for all of those people crying on the left, this is unprecedented. No, what has been unprecedented is the crime. What is unprecedented is for how many years it has been allowed to fester and foment, how many lives were discarded, how many people looked the other way because they were discardable type populations. That is horrifying, and that is unprecedented. This is what it calls for.
So Joe and Mika here, they're the odd heroes because Joe is saying what I think is very obvious, that, there are a lot of liberals who publicly are signaling that they're disgusted by this, but privately they're quite relieved. And Mika's like, we are walking into a trap. If we don't say we hate crime, Donald Trump has laid a trap for us, and now we have to say we love crime.
Yeah, this is why the media is evil, okay? If you know the truth and you don't like it, then maybe just stay out of it. Just don't say anything. But instead, they know the truth and they lie because they find that their status, they're more terrified of losing their status than losing their lives. So, they could be murdered on the way home, but what if they don't get that cocktail invite? And all of these, this is like, I think there were a few more examples yesterday of people anonymously talking about the crime and then saying, I'd rather not put my name onto this because, what they're saying is they don't want to lose their friends, I thought it was interesting that she said, the mayor says, how do we get to the other side of this, or him? Yeah. What is that? I mean, you can't get to the other side of common sense. And that is the reason why they're stuck with narratives. So they use the authoritarian narrative, which is a great one because you can fit anything into it. It's just like the racist filter. So it's like increasing law enforcement, authoritarian, arresting juveniles, authoritarian, curfews, authoritarian. They're all authoritarian. They could all be racist but none of them are, but they can look like it. But Trump, whether it's border or crime or trans invading sports, he takes the lane of common sense. So they're stuck with these narratives because they can't. What alternative do you have to common sense? There is none. You can't get over this. What happens when you remove the narrative of authoritarianism? if you took that out and just watched what was happening, it was just crime fighting. That's all it is. It's an apolitical act that we all agree with, fighting crime. It's common sense. They know that it works. The fear is that it will work. And if it works, God help the left, because success is a threat to the preservation of their failures.
So I think what they're trying to pull vote into is the other side of the Trump administration. And she's assuming that it's going to be a Democrat president in 2028 who will take with them both houses of Congress, and then D.C. will achieve statehood, and then Muriel Bowser will be governor.
But she might also have been trying to say the other side of this next 30 days, because it has to be approved in the Congress after 30 days. So that could have been also. Well, I'm not her spokesperson. What am I doing?
I don't know what you're doing, Dana. Really?
Stop that. Never mind. Stop it.
You're being very pro-Bowser right now.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
You're barking up the wrong tree.
Ahead socialist Zoran says, forget his train wreck Marxist policies. The orange man is back.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.